Hello there, and here we are with issue 31, and this is going to be the bonus issue. So let's go ahead and open this up. But before we get started, let's go ahead and bounce over and have a look at the details and the data for this issue. All right, here we are with the details and the data for this issue. So this was issue 31. We had a single video and we were working on the framework. I didn't put in that we also did the airbrush because I didn't think that was terribly significant. We had a total record time of 39 minutes and 58 seconds. We did this in a single capture. And again, 39 minutes and, well, total build time was 39 minutes 58 seconds. Total capture time was 39 minutes and 48 seconds. That tells you that we didn't do anything off camera. But we were able to get the actual video length down to 29 minutes and 14 seconds. We did put in 16 screws, so that's pretty significant. And again, here's our video count. We only did a single video for this issue. And our total time, if we come back here, we can see that our total time was a single, we have our single capture, and we had no time on that. So if we come back here to our total stats, we are up to, we have a total of 48 issues. Our total video captures up to 140. Our total video time is 24 hours and 57 minutes, nearly 25 hours. Our total build time is 78 hours and 11 minutes. And our average time is down to 31 minutes and 12 seconds. So we were over the 33 mark for quite a while. Now we're nearly below 31. And again, our shorts video is still 15 minutes. We have been put in a total of 200 screws, and we've got more screws to go. So that's pretty important. I didn't count our pipe cleaners, although we did use 2. So let's go ahead and add those in there. So we'll say 29. Even though I think it's probably higher, but we'll just count them as we're moving forward. So there we go. That is that little bit, and let's go ahead and go back and start going through this issue. Okay, so we are back from looking at the details and the data. Again, hopefully you guys are enjoying that, and at the very least finding it interesting. So let's go ahead and get started in this issue. So first thing we're going to talk about is the Naboo N-1 Starfighter. It's handcrafted and elegantly shaped. The Naboo N-1 Starfighter is almost a relic from another time, easily recognized by its yellow and chromium finish. Then one combines functionality and style, and following the Trade Federation's invasion, played an important part in the liberation of Naboo. So we know that. So let's go ahead and go through the technical specifications. So its design is from the Nubia Star Drive Inc. and the Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Corps. It's a J-type. Its length is 11 meters. It's got a Class 1 Nubia Monarch hyperdrive, Monarch C4 hyperdrive, 1,000 light year range. Sublight engines is a Nubian 221. It's been modified. The weaponry is a twin laser cannons, double proton torpedo magazine with 10 torpedoes. It can have 1 pilot, 1 astromech, and it's got a speed of 1,100 kilometers per hour in the atmosphere. And its cargo is only 65 kilograms. And it carries enough consumables for 1 week. So it's not going to venture out very far, that type of thing. So we'll just kind of go through this real quick. So the project, it was a pet project of King Ars Varuna of Naboo. The aesthetically pleasing N-1 Starfighter was the result of the combined know-how of Nubia Star Drive Inc. and the Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Corps. While the Naboo were able to construct some simpler spacecraft parts, they had to rely on trade with more industrialized worlds and prominent companies to acquire higher level technology. So that's kind of important to note. They added their own artisan touches, obviously, and the Nubian ships, they definitely have their own look about them. So, ecological aesthetics. As ambassadors of the Naboo philosophy, the Theed engineers developed a customized ecology-friendly drive system for the N-1 that burned hotter and more cleanly than the original Nubian engines. Then the Naboo version's new coolant system was perfectly integrated into the craft's aesthetic, since heat sinks that were built into the elegant engine's finals. Another example of the Naboo design are the Futhark symbols added to the cockpit's windshield, used to identify each ship. Similar markings are also seen on the control panels, control labels inside the cockpit. So yeah, so they definitely have their own look about them. So at a time when the electromagnetic technology replaced the need for chromium finish to protect starships from harmful radiation. So originally, chromium finishes were used to help protect for radiation. The Naboo still kept the chrome on some of their ships as a traditional symbol of royalty. The chromium finish also serves as a useful distraction, since it can dazzle enemy pilots and force them to adjust their optical sensors. So obviously, with all the ships that Amidala Padme flew, they all were chromium. So kind of like they said, it denotes royalty. So that's kind of interesting. Um, let's have a look here. It's actually considered to be heavily armed, and that's because of the proton torpedoes that it carries. So it helps it take on more powerful opponents. Uh, so that's pretty significant. The advanced development and weapons turned the M1 into more than just another snub fighter, even though it was never conceived as a superiority starfighter, nor designed to participate in large-scale battles with capital ships and hundreds of starfighters. So we pretty much know about this. So this is basically talking about the outfit or the uniform that they would be using and that kind of thing. One of the interesting things was that since Naboo is a peaceful people with no professional army, they did rely on their local militia known as the Royal Naboo Security Forces and the Royal Space Fighter Corps and its squadrons of N-1 fighters are part of that militia. So that's pretty interesting and kind of important because, um, you know, they would make them not really the best pilots in the world. I mean, they would have a certain level of experience and that kind of stuff, depending. But yeah, so that's pretty significant. Um, One of the things it talks about in here is trying to see where it talks about that. But this back part um, also helps it charge when it's in the hangar. It talks about here this tail connection also allows the N1 to receive a charge from the hangar's generators, and also acquired updates from the Palace battle computers. Coordinates and strategies are immediately downloaded in the N1's onboard computer, so the pilots are automatically directed to their target. So this back part actually serves a purpose for certain things. So the behind the scenes here is at the start of the design phase, then one had the angular aesthetics that was common in the original trilogy, but as the character and style of the Naboo began to develop, Doug Chiang and George Lucas chose a more sleek and streamlined direction because the Starfighter was conceived as more of a classic vessel built during an era when ships were carefully handcrafted by the artisans instead of being mass produced on an assembly line. Their smooth lines suited the CAD CAM techniques, and the flight scenes were based entirely on digital models. However, a practical model of the N-1 was built at ILM and rigged for pyro-explosive effects. Several life-size starfighters were present in the Theed hangar, the largest indoor set of Episode 1. The N-1 also appears in Attack of the Clones and in the Naboo celebration scenes at the end of Return of the Jedi, added in 2002. So obviously that's a life-size version there. They're not showing any of the models or anything like that. So now we'll get into visiting Neimoidia. Oh, sorry, visiting Cato Neimoidia. So the oldest of the Neimoidian colony worlds, Cato Neimoidia, is famed for its spectacular bridges upon which entire cities lie above vast chasms, but this lush world has also managed to have an enormous influence on the politics and destiny of the galaxy. So one of the important things to kind of understand here is the way the Neimoidians dealt with their population or what have you. So this kind of tells about its history and how it kind of came to be. Um, Cato Neimoidia was among the earliest to be colonized, the first of uh, what could, excuse me, the first of what come to be known as the Neimoidian Purse Worlds. So um, financial stability and success and riches and all that kind of stuff was very important to the Neimoidians. So I find it kind of interesting that they call them purse worlds. So you have the Cato Neimoidia, then you have the Deco Neimoidia, and then the Koru Neimoidia. Such planets were unique in the growing portfolio of the Neimoidian worlds. So it's interesting, they also consider them a portfolio. So it kind of gives you a pretty good inkling of how the Neimoidians kind of look at things. Um, uh, because of the fact that they were part of the portfolio, they were allowed to carry the word Neimoidia in their name. So, one of the things about Cato Neimoidia is its kind of location. And several episodes ago, we saw those hyperspace lanes and stuff like that. And Cato Neimoidia is right in the thick of several of those. The Carillion trade route and the Carillion way, and like two or three of the others. So that's pretty important. And it kind of goes through which ones it was close to. Um, uh, on here someplace. But just take my word for it. Uh, oh, here we go. It's relatively close proximity to the Hydian Way and the Carillion Trade Spine and the Carillion Run meant access to the systems in the Slice. And the Slice, if you can remember, was a significant portion where there was a lot of you know different um, colonies and planets and stuff like that. And it actually wasn't very far from the Trellin trade route as well. So the bridge cities, this is the kind of the important part of Cato Neimoidia. Um, to prosper to prosper above the lush forest below, the colonists of Cato Neimoidia opted to construct enormous bridges that span the vast distances between uninhabitable rock arches. A feat of engineering, these bridges are so huge that they are able to contain entire cities suspended far above the ground below. Opulent palaces and factories fill these bridges, and during times of conflict, they are heavily protected by the Neimoidians. Always at risk of destruction, either by accident or by design, these bridges are famed across the galaxy for their construction and durability. So, yeah, so that's pretty significant. And in Clone Wars, the show, you actually see a bit of the Cato Neimoidia as well. Um, so over many years, they start gaining a lot of political clout and all that kind of stuff because of all their success and their money and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't take long for them to kind of become kind of the centerpiece of the Trade Federation. So Cato Neimoidia only allowed the super wealthy to populate the planet and benefit from the rich resources the world provided. As Cato Neimoidia prospered, so did the reach and ambition of the Neimoidians themselves. So, like I said, they had a lot of political aspirations. And about 3.5 centuries prior to the Battle of Yavin, uh, uh, Neimoidia would become a founding member of the newly formed Trade Federation. And so that's pretty important as well, because as we know, the Trade Federation was kind of the initial part of what caused the Clone Wars, when they went to Naboo and all that kind of stuff. So it talks about Newt Gunroy, and if you watch Rebels, or not Rebels, but Clone Wars, you kind of learn a little bit about that. So um, their ultimate fate was they ended up getting absorbed by the Empire and became a shell of their former opulence and that kind of stuff, because the Empire, they just pretty much abuse everybody and just what is it called? Down here it says Cato Neimoidia had truly lost almost all of its influence and power, and by the time the Trade Federation was entirely dissolved, along with the Imperial Senate just prior to the Battle of Yavin, the world had become simply one of the many planets in the colonies. So that's pretty important. So yeah, it didn't survive very well. Wildlife, it didn't. It was largely unremarkable for such a lush, forest-covered world. The Neimoidian Creehawk is among the most notable. A swift, acrobatic flyer, this razor-taloned bird has a massive wingspan and dark plumage that make it appear even larger than it is. Than it actually is. Its eyes are so effective it can practically see in the dark, a vital tool for hunting. Surprisingly, Creehawks are able to be trained and respond well to instruction, so much so that they are a common sight in Cato Neimoidian aviaries across the planet. So that's kind of cool. Language. So this was kind of interesting. So, as is common in the Star Wars saga, both in film and TV series, different alien species are given regional Earth accents. This rang true for the denizens of the Neimoidian worlds, as English actor Silas Carson was asked to read Viceroy uh, Gunray's lines using a Thai accent. It is logical to assume ancient that accent represents a regional dialect, as not all Neimoidians speak in the same way all throughout the prequel trilogy. Interestingly, the regional accent changes with each foreign language version of the film. In many of the European versions of the film, the Neimoidians have Russian accents, while the German version has them speaking with a French accent. So that's kind of interesting. And aerial battles. The geography of Cato Neimoidia meant that during the Clone Wars, control of the airspace was key to the conflict when General Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan Ahsoka Tano, uh, if you're watching The Mandalorian, you would see a live action Ahsoka Tano, so that was pretty cool. Um, not to give out any spoilers, but if you're not watching, it's your own fault. uh, where are we at? We're sent to engage the CIS, the Confederate of Independent Systems, is what CI stands for, which was occupying the bridge cities. Both became separated from their squadron after a swarm of buzz droids disabled Skywalker's starfighter. Tano staged a mid-air rescue before his ship crashed. At the Battle of Cato Neimoidia, Plo Koon's starfighter crashed into a bridge city when he was shot down by Captain Jag in his Arc 170 starfighter in compliance with Order 66. So if you were wondering what happened with Plo Koon, and the interesting thing was my daughter was just asking me about Plo Koon and what happened to him. So I'll have to remind her. She just saw the Clone Wars, well, I guess they didn't really show it in the Clone Wars, but we'll have to see if they actually show that at the end of the Revenge of the Sith. I don't quite remember, but so that's kind of important if you want to know that kind of stuff. So the R2 Astromech droid. So we did talk about astromechs recently in the Secrets of Spaceflight. So we're just going to kind of go through this one uh, briefly. So we're all familiar with R2, right? So R2 series of astromech droids enjoy an unequaled level of success thanks to its superb design. effective marketing, and being launched at the right time. As a result, these astromechs have become so commonplace that individual units are almost always overlooked as they trundle about about their business in spaceports and stations the galaxy over. However, one particular astromech designation has become widely known thanks to the role he played alongside his interpreter counterpart C-3PO and his master Luke Skywalker in the toppling of the Sith-controlled Galactic Empire. His designation is R2-D2. So, as we kind of discussed in the Astromech series, this is just basically going to talk about kind of the makeup of it and all that kind of stuff. So one of the important things was through this was it talks about this heavy power supply that's actually located in the bottom here, and that helps give it like kind of a lower center of balance, so that way it helps keep it upright, which I thought was kind of interesting. Um, and the other thing is it talks about being intelligent and versatile. So industrial automation manufacturers its own central processing units for the R2 line and uses an Intel X4 model droid brain for the job. The Intel X4 is the gold standard in droid brains and comes pre-configured with no less than 700 different spacecraft configurations installed. The R2 unit's astrogation buffer contains enough memory for 10 pre-configured hyperspace jumps, and data is sent to the R2 unit's Intel X4 brain from, go to the next page here. His primary photoreceptor at the center of his dome. Below, we have the data card, which Leia used. It can receive data through other means, such as extendable antenna, the periscope, sensor packets, or one of several computer interface arms. So we know that it can use its interface arms and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so this basically talks about all the different arms and abilities that the R2 unit has. And so this was the most interesting part. Creating R2D2. And Star Wars creator George Lucas got R2D2's name from a notebook where he kept ideas, including one from an editing session on American Graffiti when Lucas turned to a colleague and asked for a film reel and related audio tape. Instead of asking for reel 2 and dialogue 2, Lucas used film editor's shorthand and said, "Pass me R2D2." So that's pretty cool. The robot's iconic appearance was painted by Ralph McQuarrie after reading Lucas's script, and one of the first jobs for production designer John Barry when he joined the team in 1975 was to work with special effects maestro John Steers to realize this on screen. They began with a rough mock-up and diminutive actor Kenny Baker, who was hired for the role. "We had to start with a tiny man," Barry explained. "He's only 40 inches, Kenny, and very strong, fortunately, because it's very hard to move. He's got these specially made little boots that lace up tightly and hold the robot's, boot firmly to his leg so that it moves as one." A few weeks later, when Barry was able to show his progress, he recalled, "George says at once, 'That'll work.'" Although Baker appeared in much of the film, some of the footage used a radio-controlled model which proved hard to control on set, as in the scene where R2-D2 trundles away from Princess Leia in the Tantive 4 corridor. So if you recall, as it's coming away, it's actually kind of veering off to the one side. It wasn't going straight. So R2 could not drive very well. So that was very, very interesting and very, very cool. So we don't have any like other kind of extra fun little bits on these sections here. Apparently, there's not a lot of fun extra bits to put in when we're talking about building the frames. So that concludes the bonus part of issue 31. And next time we'll get into issue 32, which might be interesting. We'll see. We've got some framework, and then we've got some hull plating and these thrust vector adjusters or whatever they're called. So I guess we'll see how that goes. So again, make sure you throw a comment down below. I love reading your guys' comments and interacting with you guys. And hopefully you guys, like I said, hopefully you guys are enjoying this. And we will continue moving on. So thanks everybody for watching. Very much appreciate it. And may the force be with you always.